sometimes coaches try to force a scheme or their way of doing things into a situation, and when the results don't show, instead of like actually pivoting and doing something different, they'll stay down this crazy journey of, no, I believe in what I'm doing. I'm going to keep forcing my hand, and the results will follow. C.J. Stroud was considered a top 10 quarterback just literally
after his rookie year.
After his rookie year, and now people is looking at C.J. Stroud and this Houston Texans offense like, what the hell? What's going on? So to me, when I look at that as an example, it's like, okay, it sometimes can be the players, but sometimes you can have the players, and depending on who's coaching those players, they can put you in a bad situation.
Yeah, I mean, the Texans' offensive line is awful.
I was about to say, I don't really know what you can ask Houston to do offensively. Their offensive line's worse than the Browns right now.
Well, that's what I was going to say. As bad as the Browns, I said that. As bad as the Browns' offensive line has been,
theirs is worse.
Houston's is worse.
Listen.
But you're right about C.J. Stroud.
I just feel like this. Facts, the Browns have a bad offensive line. Facts, other teams have a bad offensive line. But I feel like we find every excuse in the world to make of why we can't go or why things don't work. I don't know no NFL team that has the perfect formula or have every single thing or every single component of their football team figured out. To me, sometimes these are the breaks. Sometimes you're not going to have a good offensive line. Sometimes your DBs might not be the best. Sometimes your wide receiver group might be the weakest. Every team has strengths and weaknesses. And to me, that's where coaching comes in more than anything. You find a way to figure it out. We sit up here talking about this Browns offensive line is bad. That's a fact. But guess what? Quinshon Judkins is finding a way to get it done. He's finding a way to have success. I'm just tired of the excuses at this point. Can you execute the play or can you not?
Yeah.
It's that simple to me at this point. If this was year one with Kevin Stefanski, year two or even year three with this situation, the tune would be a little different. But to me, man, I'm growing tired. We're going into game 4 of year 6, and it's the same old. If not, it's getting worse.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing for Stefanski right now is that there's always been this he can hang his hat on that he takes these average quarterbacks and makes them look competent. He's not doing that this year though. You talk about how all these teams don't have perfect circumstances. That's 100% true. What's the great equalizer when you don't have all the right circumstances, when you don't have a perfect offense? It's the quarterback. I mean, Josh Allen doesn't have the best receivers in the NFL. He figures it out. Same thing with Patrick Mahomes. Ever since Tyreek Hill left, he's had this random cast of rotating receivers in Kansas City. He figures it out.
Even look at San Francisco right now, over the last couple games. Not to cut you off, but just look at the last couple games. Small sample size, but look at Mac Jones, who's the backup to Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan and that offense has not missed a beat because their quarterback got hurt or because they traded away Deebo Samuel.
Honestly, that's probably one of the bigger indictments on Stefanski is the fact that he's held in the same esteem as a Kyle Shanahan and others in this league. And that guy is out here still finding. Are they 3-0, the 49ers? Are they 3-0 or are they 2-1?
They're 3-0.
And they're still finding ways to win. And even when Brock Purdy was healthy, there's no Brandon Ayuk out there right now. He's hurt. George Kittle got hurt. They've been dealing with a lot of different things.
And
and even when Christian McCaffrey's been hurt, they still find ways to run the foot. You're 100% right.
And that team with all those injuries to all those skill position players are averaging 19.7 points a game, which is 23rd.
Point out what's the difference though. Look at that offensive line.
True. Their offensive line is very good, but I do think I do the big thing that if people are looking for a point of reference to why can't Stefanski do this, look at the coaches he's compared to, and that one's figuring out. Now, what I will say, I also think we can't forget what the Deshaun Watson situation did to set back this organization, set back Kevin Stefanski's offense, all those things.
Wasn't Kevin Stefanski a part of that?
He says he is.
Didn't Kevin Stefanski say he sat down with Deshaun Watson and talked about the playbook being something that both players can?
Can I say this real quick? The fact that they pitched that entire thing, the Deshaun decision, as a group effort, actually hurts Kevin Stefanski. Because if he could separate himself from it and say, that was them, I think a lot of people would be like, okay, then let's see what you can do then once you get a chance to pick your quarterback, which is kind of what he got a chance to do this year. He was more involved than ever in these quarterback conversations and going to the pro days and all those different things. We hadn't usually seen that from him. This year he went. So I like if he could separate himself from that decision and just be able to say, yeah, that was Andrew. Now he's not going to do that, but if he could do that, or hey, that was Jimmy and D Haslam saying we want to go all in, we're going to go do this, then I think it would actually help Stefanski. But because they call it a group decision, you get to sit here when I'm talking about the Deshaun decision setting things back. You can say, wasn't he part of that decision?
He was
says
part
he's
of
part
it
of
as
that
well.
decision.
And here's another part to that. And we're going to take this to 40. Michael, what's the name of the show that comes on before me and Spencer come on? I don't want to watch the name.
It's
Boomer and Valeni.
Is it just Boomer and Valeni?
We were
Kick
sitting
off
here
with Boomer and Valeni.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We were sitting here prepping for the show, and you see me start taking notes. I turned it up. They were talking about the Browns, and Boomer said that it's not Kevin Stefanski's fault, and Valenti went on to say that the Browns will be stupid to let him go. At one point, I blamed Baker. At another point, I blamed Odell. At one point, I blamed whoever else was the
defensive
quarterback.
coordinator.
The defensive coordinator.
Joe Woods.
At other point, it was the special teams coordinator. At some points, I was blaming Andrew Berry. At other points, it was Paul D. Podesta. I've even came on these airwaves and said, you know what? It goes all the way to the top with Jimmy Haslam. Why is it that, and this is me included up until recently, it seems like that we want to absorb Kevin Stefanski from any blame of what's going on. And we want to make it seem like that everything in the world is the reason why we can't have success outside of it just being him.
Listen, as I've said, I like Kevin Stefanski and I think he's a good coach. But the comments like you said Valenti made where he's like, they'd be stupid to fire him, that ultimately can't become a crutch for why you just keep him around.
No.
And it can't be that. It can't be, well, he's a 2-time coach of the year. Why would you move on from those things? Can't be the reasons why you keep a coach around. If that's the thing that is keeping Jimmy Haslam up at night because he's like, should I fire my coach? Should I not fire my coach? And he keeps, well, he's a 2-time coach of the year, and if we fire him, some other team's going to scoop him up to be an offensive coordinator in a second. You can't live in a world. And you can't live in that world and make decisions based off of fear. And that's what that is to me. So you're 100% right, man. Like, listen, as much as I think Kevin Stefanski can be a part of the solution here, as much as I respect him as a coach and an offensive mind in this game, at some point, it falls on him. We can throw out there whatever circumstances we can say. We can try to absolve him from the Deshaun thing and say, well, I don't really think it was his fault. We can guess and speculate on that and talk about it, whatever. We can say he's going to be safe this year because they want to give him and Andrew Berry a chance to dig themselves out of this hole. But at some point, you are what your record says you are, and the results are the results. And at some point, if they're not winning, and this is more the norm, and they can't turn it around, they're going to have to own the fact that they have whatever their record is, and they're going to get fired. Kevin Stefanski's part of it. So I'm with you. Like, I'm at a point right now where I'm still like. And I think part of it is because I'm going to this year assuming they're safe for 2026. But I'm at a point where it's like, all right, fine. Give them the rest of this year and give them next year. I get it. If that's your thought process, fine. But I also can't keep making excuses for Kevin Stefanski anymore either, where I'm like, I still think he's a good coach, but I'm also not seeing the results. And so at some point, if the results aren't there, that the only other place it can fall is in his lap. We can't keep... He's now been here 6 years. That's more than enough time to build the roster in the way that he wants it built and win the way that he wants to win. And let's be honest. Let's just call spade a spade here. The 2 years they made the playoffs, they were doing that with mostly players who were from the previous regime.
Yeah.
Myles Garrett is still the centerpiece of your team. And
that's a Sashi Brown draft pick.
That's two regimes
ago.
Prior. That's a Sashi Brown draft pick. That's Hugh Jackson territory. Like that's bad.
Yeah.
But like you made the playoffs in 2020, that roster was pretty much entirely assembled, aside from a few pieces, by John Dorsey and Sashi Brown. And John Dorsey turned the roster over too. Denzel Ward's one of his picks. Nick Chubb was one of his picks. A lot of these guys in the offensive line, Wyatt Teller.
Traded for him.
Wyatt Teller. He was here before. Yeah, he was here before Andrew Berry and them got here. So, all right, now you've had 6 years to do it your way. Where are the results? And if they're not there, you're right. Somebody has to be in the chopping block. I'd be okay if it ends up being the end of this year and they only win like 4 games again. I'd be okay with it being this year. But I just assume they're all back next year, and so I think it's going to be next year.
For a long time, a lot of my reasoning for keeping Kevin Stefanski as the coach was a lot of what you said. Being a leader of men, and he got the ear of the players in the locker room, and all those unwritten intangibles that come with being a coach. All that is cool, but at the end of the day, this is a results or based business, and the results.
You're talking about
wait, Mark. I'll let you talk. I'm not finished. Everything that you just said, I agree with. That was part of the reason why I wanted Kevin Stefanski here. But at the end of the day, this is a result-based business, and the results have not been there. He is under 500 as a coach. We have not won a playoff game with him on the sideline. He is credited for one of those. There are things that is going on with this team, with this offense right now, that you can look at Kevin Stefanski and say, you know what? You're responsible of this. At the end of the day, I am tired of people acting like that Kevin Stefanski is above criticism. That's the bottom line.
But can you be honest and look at this team and say, what are you getting out of offense? I mean,
you're not getting nothing out of the offense.
And is that
the Browns are not getting a damn thing out of the offense.
But
that's the point that we're making.
One game, can you look at one game and say Stefanski coached a bad game, or can you say those receivers shouldn't have popped those balls?
There's a lot of games over 5 years and 4 games going into year 6 of his tenure that you can look at and say that was that.
Yeah.
But Mark, at the end of the day,
got you, Mark.
Mark, we appreciate the call.
Yeah, we had to let him go.
Why are people acting like Kevin Stefanski is above criticism? I'm really curious to know this.
They shouldn't be. I got it early on, right? But now you're 6 years into this thing. If this was year 1 and this was happening, sure, fine. Okay, there's quarterbacks, Joe Flacco. They don't have good receivers, all those things. You're in year 6. And honestly, I'm actually glad he brought up Baker. I don't know how much you guys talked about this at all last week, because I know that was a big topic last week.
I didn't talk about it at all. But if you want to talk about it, go ahead.
Here's the thing. I don't need like to go down a Baker rabbit hole here, but just real quick. One of the things that Kevin could hang his hat on for a while was he got the most out of Baker at a time when Baker wasn't the Baker he is now. He wasn't mature, all those things. So with now that Baker's exceeding that and he's better, doesn't that kind of take something off the table that we said was a win for Kevin, or like a box check for Kevin Stefanski as you talk about developing quarterbacks? Am I wrong about that? Like, Kevin Stefanski, it's always been, well, he takes average quarterbacks and makes them better. And he got the most out of Baker Mayfield when nobody else could.
That was the word.
But Baker now is better than that.
Yeah, he is.
And I argue too. Like, I don't need to do the whole Baker Wars thing, but here's the thing: if that regime had drafted Baker, all the excuses of like, well, he's immature and he's not, he just doesn't get it, whatever. All those things, I guarantee you they wouldn't have given up on him if they drafted him. Listen. Because he wasn't their draft pick, it was easy when things got tough and he was calling guys out and all that to be like, we don't want to wait for him to mature. But if they had drafted him, they would have absolutely made sure that he matured with them. If you're a good coach, if you think you're a good organization, wouldn't you want that guy to mature with you? Don't you think you have the infrastructure to help him mature? They were like, he's not our guy, we're going to get rid of him. But if they had drafted him, it would have been different. And so I just think the whole Baker thing is another thing that we can look back and say, yeah, at the time, Kevin Stefanski had that feather in his cap. Now he doesn't even have that feather in his cap.
Listen, me and you both know, man, like, if you can sit up here and listen to people sing praises about Kevin Stefanski, then you should be aware enough and understand that criticism comes with it as well. It's always going to be two sides to a coin, no matter who you're talking about, no matter what the situation is.
And I like Stefanski.
I like Kevin Stefanski as a person.
We have reached a point, and this is, I think, where you're at, where it's okay to say, why aren't the results there? How much longer can we wait for this before we blame the coach?
I've reached a point to where I can't just keep resting on I like Kevin Stefanski as a person. That means he should be the coach.